Hello children, welcome back to the online class. Children, today we shall read and know about the chapter The Last Class written by Alphonse Daudet. Again children, it is one of the most interesting stories, prose which you will find in the book. So if you go with the title The Last Class, it clearly indicates that it was the last lesson of that particular teacher, right? And if I talk about the author, Alphonse Daudet, he is a French writer and he was a profound writer. His contribution towards writing is remarkable. Now children, every lesson, every prose has characters. Now in this chapter, The Last Class, the two most important characters are M. Hamel, Monsieur Hamel, teacher. He is a French teacher, right? And you will also find another very interesting character, that is Franz, right? Now Franz is supposed to be the narrator of the story The Last Class. Now it happens so that every chapter whichever we deal, first we try to know about the setting of the plot, the setting of the story. The Last Class, children, as you can refer to the book also, it says the story is set in the French province of Alsace, right? And in the year 1870-71, and the Franco-Prussian War fought between the French and the Prussians had just ended. So the story is set during the time period, that is 1870 to 71, right? And the Germans, that is referred to as Prussians, right? Germans referred to as Prussians had won the battle, right? And they were now supposed to rule France. Now the story is set in a small town, that is a province of Alsace, right? Now if we go with the story, right, you see the character Franz, right? You will also find the gist of the lesson which I shall discuss last, but let us go with the chapter. Now Franz is supposed to be a student, right? And Mr. Monsieur Hamel is supposed to be a French teacher. Now it happens so that Franz is quite afraid, right? The day has begun and he is supposed to go to school. He is quite afraid as he has not learnt his lesson, that is participles, right? And Mr. Hamel is supposed to be, Monsieur Hamel is supposed to be a very strict teacher. So Franz is quite afraid now. So he feels that he should bunk the class. Franz has never given attention in the class. He has always remained an under average student, right? He has always remained an under average student. He is not good at academics and mostly he tries to postpone his lessons, postpone his assignments. So that very day he was supposed to go to school, and as we know that he had not completed the chapter participles, so he was in fear and thus he felt that he would bunk the class. So when he thought of bunking the class, it came to his mind that he should go out and enjoy nature instead of joining the class. But after, loitering, roaming here and there, Franz felt that he should go to school and find out. Now on the way he came across many things, right? There was a big crowd as the situation was very tensed, right? Germans had already won. So there was a very different kind of ambience and environment. But anyhow, he reached his school, and when he reached school, he was quite bewildered and shocked. He was quite bewildered and shocked as there was a huge commotion. It was Sunday, right? And there was a huge commotion in front of the school gate. Now, when he found a huge commotion, he felt that he should go inside, and he also saw a bulletin board. But as he had never given attention to his learning and teaching, he could not read what was written on the bulletin board. So he proceeded, though there was a fear in his mind. He knew that his teacher would scold him. But when he entered the class, though he had not learnt the chapter participles, he had not completed his assignment. So when he entered the class, he tried to quietly slip. Right? He tried to quietly slip and sit at the last bench. But the last benches were already preoccupied by the villagers and all the people who had come from Alsec. All the parents, villagers, everyone. So anyhow, he tried to find a seat. The teacher was sitting, and the teacher was dressed in an extraordinary manner. In the sense, he was well dressed. So this small child, Franz, was quite shocked and aback to see the teacher dressed in a very peculiar manner. He was fully dressed in the sense he was wearing his coat, lapel, and he was looking as if he had come for a Sunday mass. So though he had fear in his mind, but still he tried to sit somewhere. He did not try to steal the attention of the teacher. He slipped and sat. And the teacher, that day, he did not scold Franz. He did not scold Franz. Instead, he asked him the question of participles, and as usual, Franz could not answer. But still, the teacher did not scold him. It was a kind of a shock, excitement, as well as a surprise to Franz, as the teacher was so strict, but he did not take any action even when he could not answer what was participles, what are participles. Now children, what happens next? The entire villagers, they were sitting at the back bench. The teacher was also well dressed, and he sat, and he said, lastly he announced that it was his last lesson. It was his last lesson of that very class. So here the title says the last class. Now why it was the last class? This is the most important question. It was the last class because the Germans had already occupied and captured France. So the Germans had decided that they would somewhere dissolve the language French, right? The language French would be dissolved from that day onwards. So the teacher had, lot of emotion. Everyone has, children. We all should respect our mother tongue. And so was the French teacher M. Hamel. Monsieur Hamel was quite, depressed and sad as the language was being dissolved in his own country. The Germans did not allow any more, right? The Germans did not allow French classes to go anymore. So Monsieur Hamel was sitting, and he was announcing to all the people that it was the last day for everyone to be in the class. And he said that since he was a very sincere teacher, he had an experience of 40 years. So he felt that he would not let this day go in vain. He said this was the last day, and even on the last day, he would teach and preach the language French, as he gave lot of priority to his mother tongue. Now Franz was quietly sitting, right? Franz was quietly sitting when the teacher took the class, right? And then the teacher addressed to all the villagers who were sitting at the back bench that they were also somewhere responsible for sometimes not sending their children to school, for not instigating their children to know the significance and importance of mother tongue. So at the same time, he was teaching the language French and even preaching the importance and significance of French language to them. And then Monsieur Hamel said that since the entire province would be ruled by Germans, they would not be allowed to learn French anymore. Now listening to this, Franz was quite disturbed and perplexed. He was confused because entire life, Franz was already he was not an adult, he was a small child, but he had never given importance. Always he had postponed his work. Then he realized what injustice he had done to the language, his own mother tongue, which he was not able to learn, which he was not able to read. So he felt very bad when the teacher announced, right, very humbly and with full of emotion, tears welled through his eyes, right? And then what happens here? Franz realizes the importance of mother tongue, but it was too late, children, as Franz could not even read what was written on the bulletin board. On the bulletin board, it was written, "Long live France." And being a French, he could not read that. So this Franz could not, resist. He felt very bad, and that is the reason why he has narrated this entire story, the last class. Now, children, as you can see, the gist of the lesson, once again, the gist of the lesson will help you to understand the entire lesson. This is in short. As we see, Franz is afraid of going to school. Why is Franz afraid of going to school? Because he has not learnt the chapter participles which was taught by his school teacher, Monsieur Hamel. Next, it says he wants to enjoy beauty of nature. Of course, since he had not learned the lesson, he did not want to go to school. He wanted to roam here and there and bunk the class. Next, it says bulletin board. Now, on that bulletin board, what was written? All the bad news. All the bad news in the sense, lost battles. You can note down, children, and write also. Lost battles. The drafts and orders of the commanding officers. Right? So all these things were written on the bulletin board, but Franz was not able to read. Next, we find the changes he notices in the school. What was the change? The change was that instead of students, there were also villagers and parents sitting at the last bench. Why they were sitting at the last bench? Because they were aware of what was going around. Next, it says, now the teacher does not scold him. Now, generally the class is noisy. There is a response, right? The classes, when children come, it becomes an active class, but that day was not so, right? The teacher does not scold him. Why the teacher does not scold him? Because already it was the last class and Franz had never given importance. So last day, the teacher felt instead of scolding him last day, he should create an impact, an everlasting impact on the child, so that he realizes the importance of language, which he had never. He had always postponed. Now, as a child, as a student, it is our responsibility that when work comes to us, when assignment is given to us, we should respond accordingly. We should never postpone things, otherwise it is never done. Next, we find the teacher dressed in his best. The teacher was dressed in his best because it was the last day and he wanted to create an indelible mark on each and everyone present over there. Not by his appearance, but by his emotions towards, by his love and affection towards the language. Villagers occupying the last benches. Yes, the villagers had come there. Why? Because they were aware of the situation that from now onwards, Monsieur Hamel, who was a very sincere teacher, would no longer teach French to their children. So they just had come to pay tribute and honor to this great man, Monsieur Hamel. Next, we find to pay tribute to Hamel. Now, next we find Hamel announces that it was the last class. Yes, so he made it very clear and transparent to everyone that from now onwards there would be no French class. Instead, the Germans would occupy and the language of Germans would be preached and taught. Right? Next, we find Franz realizes the importance of mother tongue, but it was too late, as I said, children. Right? He realizes, right, that he had never given attention, he had never understood French, and what was written on the board, that was also he could not read. So he felt very bad, and then he realized the importance of mother tongue. Now, if we talk about the chapter, the most important thing comes here. What is the theme and message of this story? Now, the theme and message is quite clear, that one should always give priority, one should give priority and importance, priority to mother tongue. Children, this is the existence, if we talk about India, the mother tongue is Hindi. So today, though we are learning English is of course an official language, very important, but at the same time, we need to give, little attention and priority to our mother tongue. This is the existence, and that is what Monsieur Hamel tried to preach. So the lesson entirely revolves around priority to mother tongue, the importance of mother tongue. At the same time, never postpone your work. Never postpone your work. The same happened with France. France always postponed that he would do the lesson next time, and ultimately he landed where? When he could not read what was written. That is, long live France. So with lot of emotions, this great teacher M. Hamel concluded when tears welled through his eyes and he was speechless. So one line he said, long live France, means he tried to proclaim the existence of France. We all love our nation, we all love our country. So at the same time, we need to give importance to everything which is associated with our nation, especially our mother tongue. This is what the last lesson preaches us. Children, read the chapter. The answer and questions will also be uploaded accordingly. Till then, have a great day. Stay safe. Thank you.